Oh, it doesn't? It doesn't show 7? All right, let's just start. All righty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Faith and Program Committee meeting of March 5th. At this time, calling to order the meeting. We have regrets from Trustee Herman Valoria. All other trustees are present, both virtually and in person. To start off with item A2, which is our opening prayer, if everyone can join me, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. In the words of Pope Francis, during this third week of Lent, let us fast from hurting words and say kind things, fast from sadness and be filled with gratitude, fast from anger and be filled with patience, fast from pessimism and be filled with hope, fast from worries and have trust in God, fast from complaints and contemplate simplicity, fast from pressures and be prayerful, fast from bitterness and fill our hearts with joy, fast from selfishness and be compassionate to others, fast from grudges and be reconciled, fast from words and be silent so we can listen. We pray that our only desire and our one choice is to choose what better leads to the deepening of God's life in us. We ask the Lord to guide and bless the Dufferin Peel community with peace, joy, and love. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. At this time, could I get an approval for the agenda? Sorry, before that, we have our land acknowledgement. We begin by acknowledging the land and our responsibility to care for and respect all that creation gives to provide us with life. This land upon which we live, work, and sustain ourselves is the ancestral and treaty lands of the Mississauga, Anishinaabeg, also known today as the Mississaugas of the Credit, the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land. We also recognize that this land is rich in pre-context history and relationships, which includes the Anishinaabe and Ogahongwe, and since European contact has and continues to become home for Indigenous and non-Indigenous people. As a responsible community, we believe all people are sacred and possess inherent and immeasurable worth and dignity. Colonialism displaced and dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their ancestral lands and continue to deny their basic human rights, dignities, and freedoms. We are committed to the sacrament of reconciliation, making reparation, and fulfilling our treaty obligations, duties, and responsibilities. As outlined in the Gadogna Dish with One Spoon Wampum, this treaty governs and affirms that we actively maintain mutually beneficial relationships and collectively respect and care for the land, water, animals, and each other in order to guarantee a good life of our future descendants. Thank you. My apologies. Going to our next item, A4, which is our approval of the agenda. Could I get a mover?
Moved
by Trustee Daryl D'Souza. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. Next, we move on to our declarations of interest, item A5. Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? Seeing no declarations of interest, we move on to our next item, which is the approval of the minutes from the Faith and Program Committee meeting of January 16th, which has the attached business arising from the minutes. Could I get a mover, please?
I'll move, Mr. Chairman, Stefano.
Moved by Trustee Stefano Pascucci.
And apologies for having my camera off. I'm trying to figure out my camera on my computer.
For this motion, all in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, carried. We have no awards and presentations this evening. We move on to item C, which is our delegation. At this time, we'd like to welcome forward Raheem White, our student from our Dufferin Peel board, to speak about the importance of being anti-racist. Thank you very much, Raheem, for joining us this evening. I'd just like to go over a few points, and then you can continue with your presentation. First off, welcome and thank you for delegating at the Faith and Program Committee meeting of March 5th. I will be reviewing a few points related to the rules and process related to delegations. You will have 5 minutes to make your presentation. This will be timed at the clock that will be right in front of you. We'll signal you when there's 1 minute remaining. If you intend to use or begin to use the name, title, position of a staff member, or any personal or other information with respect to another person, including a member of the board or committee, or a pupil or their parent or guardian, I rule that you must address the committee of the whole in an in-camera session. Delegates can be critical of board decisions or make submissions with respect to a recommendation or decision. However, I will rule that your delegation is out of order and end the delegation if either of the following occurs. Number one, the information in your oral speech is significantly different than the written speech provided. And two, your speech, notes, and or other materials contain, or if you begin to use language that constitutes an invasion of privacy, breach of confidentiality, defamation of character, or is obscene, or discrimination against an individual or group of individuals based on a protected grounds under the Ontario Human Rights Code. Once you have completed your presentation, trustees will be given an opportunity to ask you questions of clarification in relation to your presentation. Once the questions of clarification from trustees are complete, your role in the delegation will be concluded and you will be asked to leave the podium and take your seat in the gallery. At this point, trustees may choose to debate on the issue and may ask questions of staff. It is important to be aware that a decision may not be made on the issues at this meeting. If there's no questions, you may continue with your delegation.
Thank you. Good evening, trustees, staff, and all who are present. Last time I delegated, I was just a mere student who saw it necessary to advocate on behalf of myself and on behalf of others. This time, I'm one of the newly elected student trustees for the 2024-2025 school year. While I don't officially start till August, I'm not going to wait until then to continue my advocacy. The last time I was here, I shed some light on the issues affecting Black students in Dufferin Peel. It's safe to say these are not experiences any student should be subjected to. The expectation for kids to thrive in environments like the ones in our schools that are toxic, oppressive, and racist is completely far-fetched and unfair. Before I talk about the importance of being anti-racist, it's important that I preface my speech with what exactly it means to be anti-racist. Anti-racist does not mean saying I'm not racist. It does not mean sitting on your power to effect change and doing nothing with it. It does not mean prioritizing money over people. It does not mean saying you don't see color. It does not mean being a performative ally. Being anti-racist and promoting a system that is anti-racist requires a wholehearted and holistic approach, not one that is half-hearted and performative. Being anti-racist requires you to be willing to find, acknowledge, and challenge your own biases. This means using the resources that are out there to increase your self-awareness. That in turn leads to you having conversations among yourselves. This allows you to get a real and factual idea about the harms that are embedded in this system and that have been there from its inception. Being anti-racist requires action, not planning, action. We get so wrapped up in the data. The same horrible data findings we're seeing today are the same ones we were seeing 20 years ago. And it's the exact same ones we're going to see 10 years from now if we don't act. I challenge you to ask yourselves, when are we going to stop collecting data and start acting? When will you start enacting anti-racist policies in this board to ensure that students are safe? I challenge you to ask yourselves, how many times and how often have you as a trustee served as a voice for the concerned parents of racialized students in this board? I invite you to ask yourselves, why is the student population of our school 70% racialized, yet 80% of our administrators are white? Ask yourselves when you will use your power as a trustee to make our operational leaders act. That leads me to my next point. Maintaining a good relationship with the community. It's a necessary part of being anti-racist. It fosters trust. It empowers marginalized voices, and it leads to a community-led solution to this crisis. Please ask yourselves, how many Black community advisory councils have you as trustees attended? How many times have you as a trustee centered racialized voices in what you do? I'll let you sit on that. Being anti-racist requires two important things: accountability and money. Hold operational leaders accountable for their decisions and actions, or even their lack of action. Hold yourselves accountable as policymakers, as you have the power. You have the power to set the direction that this board takes. As far as money, I beg of you, please advocate for equity to have a budget in this board, because it currently doesn't. Take our board back to a people and student-centered approach, and not one that is corporate-minded. I think it's so fitting that I'm here today to talk about the importance of being anti-racist during Black Mental Health Week. As our DP Mental Health and Wellbeing champions put it, and I quote, "This week and every week, We recognize the effects of anti-Black racism on the health of Black communities. Mental health and well-being of Black and racialized students is exactly why I'm here. Being anti-racist and not just not racist is important so BIPOC students of this board can feel seen and can feel heard and valued and loved. You have an obligation to ensure that the environment of schools in this board are safe, inclusive, diverse, and welcoming. I'm asking you to take these words of encouragement for you to use your collective power as a board of trustees to act. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Raheem, for that presentation. First off, to our trustees, do we have any questions to our presenter? If you are online, you can send me a note if you have a question to ask. See no questions. Thank you very much for that presentation, Raheem. Appreciate it. At this time, I'd like to ask trustees if there are any questions to staff at this time. See no questions from both online and in person. We move on to our next item, which is item D1, our regular reports for this evening. Starting off with D1A, the Ontario Catholic School Trustees Association report. Anything, Trustee Del Rosario?
No report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Next, we move on to item D1B, good news reports. Do we have any good news reports this evening? Seeing no good news reports, we move on to item E, which is updates, information reports from committees for receipt. Actually, before we move on to that item, just taking one step back to D1B for good news items, I think Trustee Del Rosario has something to mention. Sure. Trustee Del Rosario.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to share that last week I attended the Black Showcase of Black Expo at St. Marcellinus, and it really showcased the different talents of our students, as well as the in word, in dance, and singing. And we had a wonderful speaker. Adrian, what's his name? Randall. He's a poet, Randall. Poet laureate. So it was a great evening where everyone enjoyed and understand the community and understand the culture. So I just want to share that. It's a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Del Rosario. Do we have any other good news items? Seeing none, we move on to item E, which is updates, information reports from committees for receipt, which we have none. We move on to item F, which is updates, information reports from administration for receipt. Starting off with item F1, our DPCDSB Math Achievement Action Plan update, supporting mathematics, teaching and learning. Assistant Superintendent Wendling.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and through you, Mr. Chair, it's my pleasure to present this report this evening. Trustees would be aware that the ministry's latest initiative, one of them, is focus provincially on math by having a math lead in every school board, which is the role that Assistant Superintendent Wendling fulfills. Tonight, he will update you with respect to where we are at with the Math Achievement Action Plan in terms of providing a report to the ministry, but before that, providing a report to the Board of Trustees. Assistant Superintendent Wendling.
Thank you. Through the chair, at the beginning of the 2023-2024 school year, Ministry of Education required that all school boards in Ontario create a Math Achievement Action Plan. This plan was first presented at the October Faith and Program meeting. This evening, I would like to update the plan. The Math Achievement Plan focuses on 4 priority actions: that of curriculum fidelity, math content knowledge for teaching, knowing the student, and measurable results. The plan also calls for support of 35 priority elementary schools within our board, 3 priority secondary schools, priority classes focusing on grade 3 and 6 at elementary, and grade 9 at secondary. These schools were identified by the Ministry of Education and currently are receiving support from a math facilitator to the equivalency of 1 day per week. The plan also focuses on providing digital tools to all schools such as Knowledge Hook, Mathology, Math and Math Up Classroom, as well as resources to support educators provided by the Dufferin Peel Catholic Math Team and by the Ministry of Education. Math Achievement Report update will also focus on measurable results. That is, for each priority action, we have a corresponding strategy. And for each strategy, we have created a key performance indicator, or KPI, to measure the progress. At the board, school, and class level, we have a strategy which addresses each of the 3 priority actions. This is the first part of the math achievement report. Then for each priority school, we have a strategy for each priority area at the board, school, and class level. And this is the second part of the report. So in total, we have 18 strategies with at least 1 KPI. A key performance indicator, or KPI, is a quantifiable measure that will help to measure progress of the strategy. KPI is a measure by one or more pieces of data. And there are 2 types of KPIs that are used in the math achievement report. One, KPIs that are developed by the Ministry of Education. That would include specifically priority school data such as achievement data, attendance, and some EQAO data. Then there are strategies developed by the Dufferin-Peel Catholic District School Board. This constitutes things like digital tool use, as well as issues around confidence for students. Sources of data for this report include EQAO data, student achievement data that comes from the report card, student attendance, attitudinal surveys. These are attitudinal surveys that we distributed in January that involved a student survey, educator survey, and administrator survey, as well as digital tools data, both usage and effectiveness. There was information gathered at the board level, as well as we went out to the vendors. And because the math achievement report is happening province-wide, we were able to get a lot of good usage and supplemental data from the vendors as well. It should also be noted that baseline data, that much of the data that will be used in the math achievement report is really considered baseline data. So as we go in, before we start talking about some specific data, I just would like to side note. As you notice, we actually surveyed students in grade 1 and 2, which was a bit of a challenge. We needed actually to come together and collaborate as a board to understand how we could get information. There were only 8 questions for those students, but with the help of some happy faces and some thumbs up and some other things and congratulations, we were able to actually get a lot of data. In fact, the first chart that you see there shows that when we talk about specific questions, the first one being, I'm good at math, we look at the difference between students' responses in grade 1 and 2 and grade 3 and 8. And what we found is that between those grades, students' confidence or saying that they're good in math went down 5%. Then between grade 3 and 8 in secondary school, that's grade 9 through 12, it went down 14%. So as students matriculate through Dufferin-Peel Catholic, we see that overall it goes down approximately 19% for students to say I'm good at math. This is important information because it will help us not only for our teachers to help understand our students, but also it helps us to make program decisions. I also have to note that this is actually a specific question the Ministry of Education wanted to see. It is a question on EQAO questionnaires, but because these questionnaires are only done one time a year, they wanted to have a comparison. As well, another question we ask students throughout is math an easy subject? Between grade 1 and 2 and 3 and 8, it actually went down 20% in response. As well, it went down 7% between grade 3 and 8 and into secondary for a total of 27%. Again, important information as our teachers get to know their students and understand the confidence that they have or don't have. This will affect how they're taught and actually goes hand in hand with the math priority. The second question is actually a question we looked at from the disagree side. So the question says, I can answer hard math questions. Really, what it should say is, I cannot answer a hard math question. And between grade 1 and 2 and 3 and 8, what we found is 6% more students said, I can't answer those tough questions. This would be a question like application or problem solving, which if we look at the EQAO data for our board, we don't usually do very well on. We're actually below the ministry average in the questions like in grade 3 to 8 in secondary, there's only a 1% change. Overall, students as they matriculate through the system will have approximately a 7% difference. Again, I understand most of the math that I'm taught, or I don't understand it in this case, goes down 5% between grade 1 and 2 and 3 and 8, goes down a further 8% as they matriculate through secondary school for overall 13%. One must wonder if that 5%, is that because maybe they don't have the language skills as they go through grade 1 to 3, 4? That could be the case, but the fact that it actually goes even further makes it difficult to understand. I will say before we talk about the next section that the digital tools section, we received a lot of data and a lot of information. And it was really kind of hard to pinpoint one or two pieces of data to speak to you about tonight. But what we're finding is that we are having traction, that the tools are being used, and overall they're being well received. We look at the priority action of ongoing learning. Last year, 2022 to 2023, board offered subsidies to our teachers. And 72 teachers took advantage of these subsidies in order to take a math AQ course. This could have been math part 1, part 2. It could have been a course for intermediate, junior, or at the high school level. This year, we introduced the subsidies again. And in fact, we had an amount of 150 that we could offer at the board. We hit that 150 in term 1. So we were very excited about it. I asked for more. Called the ministry and said, can we have some more subsidies? And we found out approximately a week and a half ago that we have 50 more subsidies that we can give to the teachers if they apply. So I think that's good news. And in fact, what we have found in the surveys is that both principals and teachers are finding that taking that AQ course has made a difference in their teaching and somewhat in their confidence. We break down the subsidies because this is important as well. We see that it's actually across all different areas. And in fact, I'm very proud of the fact that we had CEC staff who may have a role like a facilitator or other roles actually constituted 9%. And in fact, the priority schools, 23%, that's approximately our percentage of school. So it's actually slightly higher if you think about it, because 23% is overall, but it actually is a little bit higher because we distributed among LTOs and CE staff also. Finally, when we focus on priority schools, we've seen a lot of different data. We're seeing some traction, for lack of a better word, in the fact that we're seeing an increased use, slight increase. I'm not going to say a big increase, but a slight increase in digital tools, slight increase in positive attitudes towards teaching. But the most telling stat is actually this one, which comes from scale scores, which our research department team have put together and used in the last number of surveys for teachers. With respect to the areas of math engagement, learning environment, manipulatives and technology, and math responsive instruction, teachers reported that when you compare priority school and non-priority school, that the priority school staff feel a greater amount in each of those areas, anywhere from 6 to 8%. So I believe we are going in the right direction with the priority school. That's been a focus. They've had more staffing, and we can go further with this in the future. In terms of reporting back to you, back in November 15th, we put the first math achievement plan in. That was based on information shared with you at the October Faith and Program meeting. March 27th, I will put in the second iteration of the report. July 15th is the last iteration, and prior to that, I again will come to the trustees and give you some information on how we're doing and updating you on the map. That's my report for this evening. Chair, if there are any questions?
Thank you very much for that presentation. Do we have any questions? As of now, I have Trustee D'Souza on the list. If there's anyone online, feel free to message me, Trustee D'Souza.
I believe the slides are in the report.
Through the chair, it's part of the agenda invite, uploaded to the calendar invite.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. My question is with regard to your slides on priority action, getting to know the learner. Questions which you ask students in grade 1 and 2, and then 3 and 8, and then secondary. Now, math is an easy subject. You had difference between 1 and 2 and secondary is 27%.
The chair, yes. The secondary students that you put this question to, were they the students who actually took math in secondary, or was it anyone? Through the chair, the survey was given to anyone.
Then naturally, if a student has not taken math in secondary, because they don't like it or they're not interested in it.
Perhaps I can answer that question through the chair. Students are required to take 4 math credits now in secondary, so it's not an option not to take math. So they would have had some math experience.
Yeah, but then the 4 math have to be completed over 4 years.
Correct.
Now, if they completed it in year 1, then because they just want to get it over with it, and you ask them that question in year 2,
Mhm.
and they're in grade 10, is math an easy subject? They'll say, no, not interested, because you know what? I'm tired of that. Doesn't make logical sense asking the entire secondary school when those individuals don't have math as a subject for that semester or for that year. That's the reason why you're getting minus 27%.
Through the chair, once students are in grade 10, 11, and 12, they can actually pick math that's more appropriate for their pathway and for their ability level. So in grade 11, they actually have, I believe, 4 to 5 choices of a university-bound math, a college-bound, a mixed math, or a world-to-work math.
I understand that. My question very specifically is, this might not be a clear reflection of what the students are thinking, because there are students who don't like math. I mean, I have 2 children who passed through different field and they don't like it. They finished off their math in grade 9 and they said, you know, thank you very much. Don't want to do math anymore. You ask them that question when they're in grade 10, they've not taken math as one of their credits. You want to say, you know what? It's not an easy subject. I don't like it.
Through the chair, we can take that back and speak to the research department with respect to the statistical accuracy or significance of that. But given new curriculum reform, students need to take 4 math credits, and typically that's 1 per year. And as Assistant Superintendent Wendling said, there are different pathways for students to meet their needs, but it would be typical for students to take 1 math credit per year in our secondary schools. However, to your point, we can take back that question to speak to our researchers regarding the statistical validity of the data that's before you and provide an update in issues and events.
Statistically, it's right, because they've given it to everyone, and those everyone have not taken it. The people who don't like math have not taken it, and their answer will be no, I don't like it. It's hard. Statistically, it's right. I'm not talking about statistically.
Through the chair, to clarify, students take math every year. They need 4 math credits. So I'm not quite sure I understand the question.
In grade 12, every student has to take math.
Typically, they do. Typically, there's pathways that they can go. Again, we can take that back and provide an update in issues and events. But typically, students take a math credit every year of their secondary.
No. I have 2 kids who've gone through this different field, and they did not have math in 12. I mean, I know what they took.
Through the chair, we can take that back.
Yeah, I mean, I think put it in issues and events, and
For sure.
I'd like to see. Then can you explain the logic between the difference grade 1 and 2 and difference grade 3 and 8?
Through the chair, what we found when we had the data is when we broke it out, what we saw as you can see in the data, that basically in an area, a question like I am good at math, what we're seeing is just a negative trend. And in particular, you know, in students in grade 1, 2, and maybe even grade 3, 4, and 5 in the junior grades, that's concerning. We know math might not be for every student, but we want them to believe that they are good at math, because math isn't just the numbers. Math isn't just numbers and algebra. It's actually things like architecture. It leads into the sciences. It's part of everyday life. Our students' financial literacy, things along those lines, which are important for students to understand. So we want to have a bit of a joy for math, an understanding of math, and maybe, you know, the opportunity to enjoy things that are outside of what we would call traditional math. Trying to give them a full education in that way. And so by understanding that maybe some already have a negative attitude towards math, that will help the teachers in their programs. And maybe their attitude toward math is because of some barriers that they have, and taking some time to understand what those barriers are and understanding the learners.
And the difference you've calculated here between 1, 2, and secondary, you've just added -6 and -1 and put it as -7. Statistically, is that right?
Through the chair, yes, that's the data that came back.
Because it shouldn't be that way. It should be the actual difference between 1, 2, and secondary. Not a total of 1, 2, and 3 to 8.
Through the
Make that-
chair, that's what the survey brought back to us, so that's what I'm reporting.
Through the chair, I'm sorry, can you ask the question again?
The last column, that's there, the difference between 1, 2, and secondary, I notice is a total of first column and the second column. In both instances. It's not the actual number.
Again, we can take that back with the researchers. I'm not able to comment. Trustee De Silva wasn't, De Souza, sorry. I wasn't intimately involved in that. It could be just happenstance that that's the case,
No,
but
no, it can't be.
yeah, so we'll take that back and provide clarity as well.
Too-
And I
too
do
much
want
of
to
coincidence.
apologize. It's I was getting confused with the math. Trustee De Souza, it is 3 math credits that students have to take, but typically students take the grade 12 math if they're in a post-secondary pathway. Typically for most programs, they require at least 1 math. So I apologize for that. I had English on my mind when I was thinking about that, but it is 3 math. And then typically most grade 12 students will take a math if they're seeking
Yes, they are doing.
the post-secondary pathway. Yeah.
Inika? I was there. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Trustee D'Souza. On the list as of now, I have Trustee Bruno Inika and Student Trustee Bailey. Trustee Bruno Inika.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What does staff think the pitfall is? Is it the teacher? Is it, and I'm not being critical, I'm just saying, is it, I mean, I'll be very honest with you, when my kids went to school, I won't mention the school, they had a very, very, very difficult time with math, not because they didn't understand it, just couldn't comprehend the teacher. That caused me significant phone calls. So, you know, is it the teaching style or is it the book? Because I know, you know, one of my kids struggled in math and the other one just whizzed right through it like nothing. But the other one worked hard at it. But one of the challenges that they had was understanding the teacher because so does staff have any indication of what that, I mean, if staff knew what the issue was, I'm sure the staff would have resolved it and this would be positive numbers versus the negative numbers, but does staff get any inkling of what may be the root cause of it?
Through the chair, there could be a number of factors. It could be all the things that you said. There could be additional things as well. The problem in mathematics in Ontario is a very old problem. It's over 10 years that we've had declining EQAO results. So I don't, just to think that it's maybe 1 or 2 problems, we need to go deeper. And in fact, this initial survey will actually give us opportunities to ask more questions and to do some further research into it. It's not an easy problem. It's very complex. All the things you say, definitely, there are reasons, but I think there might even be more that we need to uncover.
Just to be clear, we don't have problems in Dufferin Peel. We have challenges and opportunities. Challenge to address the issue and an opportunity to show our leadership.
Through the chair, thank you for clarifying
I
that.
just wanted to make sure because I wouldn't want you to continuously use the word problem because, you know, that's not, you know, but anyway, so does staff have any, other than what's going to happen here, any other plans? I mean, we've got 150 plus teachers that we've now taken extra credit courses per se. Is there room for more? Could have there been more, or was 50 the limit?
Through the chair, I thought I did pretty good getting 50 more subsidies from the ministry, but at this time, we're uncertain what the funding will be in the future. However, they are asking for input, and definitely the AQ subsidy course is something we'd want to continue in. So that's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very impressed with those numbers. And you know, please don't. My question wasn't as a negative question on just 50. getting that many more is a feat in itself. But has there been interest in our staff to want more?
Through the chair, we did get, when the 150 shut down, we did get some inquiries, and we actually had some inquiries of possibly, if there was we were going to get more subsidies, if that was a possibility. And in talking with the ministry, they said it was, because some other boards have stepped forward. That's why we had the inkling to request more subsidies. I'm not exactly sure how many that would be. So in speaking with staff, we thought 50 would be a good estimate as to how many, and we're going to be promoting that in the coming weeks as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Nika. Next, I have Student Trustee Bailey.
Through the chair, how is the math department working with the Equity and Indigenous Education Department to address the achievement gap between Black and Indigenous students compared to their counterparts?
Thank you, and thank you for the question. Through the chair, not part of the report this evening, but something that we're very proud of is that we've engaged in a system-wide professional learning community or professional learning cycle, whereby every elementary school has identified grade 2 and 5 teachers to work on a common goal from now until the rest of the year, with some release time in working in a professional learning cycle. This first round of the professional learning cycle is based on getting to know our learner and building math confidence, both in educators and students, and mining some data. And so Trustee Klein, Student Trustee Klein, when we get together with those leaders that are implementing that in the system, Superintendent Brunton and his team are there and consistently remind us to view things through an equitable lens, as specifically with respect to the disproportionality of the achievement of our students in those areas. Hopefully that answers the question.
I would just like to step in. I believe Director Mazzarato also has a comment to make. Director Mazzarato.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on this really important conversation. Just want to begin by expressing my sincere gratitude to Assistant Superintendent Kevin Welding. I know he's supported by the superintendents and program and David's leadership, but I do want to offer and expand upon the information that's being given, really prompted by Trustee Ianika's question, because Assistant Superintendent Kevin Weldon was quite correct. There isn't one silver bullet answer to the math challenges in Dufferin Peel. I think that continuing to build our staff capacity, you heard through the AQ courses in mathematics, I and a couple of other superintendents last spring had the opportunity to actually take that AQ course ourselves. I think it's important as educators that we're constantly positioning ourselves to get the most up-to-date information on what pedagogy needs to look like. And I think continuing to promote that through our system and even advocating with the Ministry of Education, the importance of continuing to provide these subsidies, especially as new educators come into the profession so that they get a deeper immersion into the pedagogy that's going to support children's math learning. The reality is we cannot continue to use the types of approaches that maybe all of us, those of us that have been around a while might have learned math, because as referenced, some students might just take to it naturally, not necessarily because of the teaching, but because of, their abilities to really grasp those. But we have to be very concerned about the students that need the kind of support and scaffolding. And so I think it's ensuring people understand what pedagogy needs to look like, that math needs to focus very much on students' ability to be flexible with numbers, to think about different ways in which they can solve problems, to be able to discuss that, to be able to see really good examples of and different, there isn't just one way to solve a problem. So that's one thing. But I think most importantly, and this kind of speaks to what Student Trustee Bailey Klein was kind of getting at, is that we have to go at this one student at a time. We really need to put processes in place to get to know our students, to use good assessment tools, to use good developmental tools, and to try and be able to use those tools to identify where the gaps are in students' knowledge. Because the one thing about math is that if you miss some important concepts, some experts talk about it as being akin to a Swiss cheese sort of gap in your math learning. If you miss that very early on in math development in the primary grades, and that doesn't get addressed, then that just continues to exasperate itself to the point where I think that's where that whole math attitude comes in. Students begin to believe they don't know math, they don't understand math, they're never going to get math. But we also know that if we take students back developmentally and fill in those gaps, that they can be very, very successful. And I think that this is really the work of what the team is trying to do, is equip our educators to be able to understand how you student by student understand them, and especially for our Indigenous and our Black students. I think the coaches that we've hired, the student success, all of that really needs to be geared at really understanding an individual's challenges around math learning and putting those supports in place. So all that to say, we have a lot of work to do in this area, but I think the good news is we're learning more and more about what that approach needs to look like. And I think as we continue to build the capacity of our educators and our leadership and help our students to understand, you can all do math. You can all do math. And let's continue to offer the supports through the summer, the kinds of other supports we can through coaches and tutoring and student success teachers and our math facilitators, and not take our eye off the ball of how important it is, especially in today's society, that all students are supported in being successful in math. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Mazzarato. Going back to student trustee Bailey Klein, was there any other questions?
Through the chair, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, I have trustee Stefano Piscucci.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the report. It was a lot of information. Through you, Mr. Chairman, to anybody who wants to answer, staff or the presenter. Did we take into account, obviously over the years, we've taken a lot of students from the Ukraine and individuals who have more difficulty speaking English or understanding English. Have we taken that into account when the numbers were looked at?
Through the chair, no, that was not taken into consideration in the first iteration of the survey. We just wanted to get some baseline data to see where we were at.
And the reason why I ask is because Trustee Aidika's comment, if you can't understand the teacher, then you can't understand, you may not understand the concept. Yes, math is universal, but if you don't understand what's being asked of you, then you may not be able to understand it. So I guess, is there any way that we could be able to, I guess it's too late now, it should have been done at the time, where that future times we could be able to filter that, not to skew our numbers in any way, but just to understand what we're looking at.
Through the chair, Executive Superintendent Vecchierino will attempt to answer the question from a research perspective.
So
Thank you.
Through the chair, the number of students who have joined Dufferin Peel from the Ukraine is not a high enough number to skew our results substantively. So that's an important sort of substratum or sub layer of the question. Beyond that, we try with our math attitudes survey to keep the questions as open and easy to access as possible, because we're trying to get at the math and not get bogged down by the language. Teachers, although not all teachers will do this in the same way or to the same extent, we're also encouraged on this particular survey to support students in understanding the question. Finally, we have always struggled with, and I want to make sure that I get this right at the beginning. We have challenges which we respond to and create solutions, which are linked to students whose first language isn't English. So teachers have a good background in trying to if you will, take the language out of the math so that the focus can be on the math itself. But I will go back to the first point that I made, which is we have not had a significant enough influx from in terms of students from the Ukraine that would skew our numbers significantly one way or the other.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much to you, Mr. Chairman, to Superintendent Vaccarino. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate the information. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Trustee Stefano Piscucci. Do we have any other questions? Trustee Bruno Iannica?
Chairman, I'll apologize for asking the question, but didn't see it in the report, but I heard the assistant superintendent talk about it, and I've read it. It's a priority school and a priority school student.
Priority school, through the chair, priority school is actually a grade 3, grade 6, or grade 9 class that was identified by the Ministry of Education as to needing extra support. Most of that information is based on EQAO data from the past 2 years, as well as they would look at other data, perhaps like attendance. A priority class would be the 3, 6, 9 class. A priority school would house one of a grade 3, a grade 6, or grade 9 class, or a grade 3 and 6 class.
And Chairman.
Thank you very much, Trustee Bruno Iannica. Do we have any other questions? Seeing no questions, thank you very much, Assistant Superintendent Wendling, for that presentation. Appreciate it. Next, we move on to item F2, our student trustee elections for 2024-2025. Associate Director Amro.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I now present Superintendent Belshore, who will present the student trustee report.
To the chair, good evening. The following report can be found on pages 31 and 32 of the agenda package. On Wednesday, February 21st, 2024, the election of student trustees for the 2024-2025 school year took place at the Catholic Education Center, hosted by the Dufferin-Field Catholic District School Board. Student trustee candidates, student council prime ministers, and voting representatives attended this meeting. Vice Chair Thomas and Associate Director David Amaral brought greetings from the board. During the meeting, candidates were given the opportunity to express their suitability for the position of student trustee, representing the interests of students of the DPCDSB in their 3-minute speeches. Each candidate was invited to read Renewing the Promise, a pastoral letter for Catholic education by the Assembly of Catholic Bishops of Ontario. It speaks to the great promise of Catholic education and how our Catholic schools offer an extraordinary contribution to the social and environmental fabric of our society and world. 11 North schools and 12 South schools were represented in the elections. The successful candidate for the North was Gia Sharma from St. Marguerite Duville Catholic Secondary School. The South student trustee was Raheem White from St. Marcellinus Catholic Secondary School. And the Indigenous student trustee was Bailey Klein from Our Lady of Mount Carmel Catholic Secondary School. This concludes the report. I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you very much for that report. Do we have any questions? Trustee Stefano Piscucci.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Superintendent Belshore, for your report. Do we, I guess through you, Mr. Chairman, to staff, do we track how often a school does not have a candidate?
The chair, we don't, but we can go back over the years to see that information and see if there's a pattern.
Because I'd like to, it'd be interesting to see if there is a pattern, if we need to help along that school. It'd be great to have all the schools have a candidate. And just sort of this looking at through here. Okay, so and I guess congratulations to Trustee Bailey Klein for your reelection. Look forward to working with you next year. But a question for you is how many individuals came across or came up to become an Indigenous student trustee?
The chair, I'll pass it over to Executive Superintendent Vectorino.
So through the chair, the only candidate who came forward and who expressed an interest in being an Indigenous student trustee for the coming school year was our current Indigenous student trustee, Bailey Klein.
Okay, thank you. So perfect. Question is, if we don't have an Indigenous student trustee or sorry, Indigenous student apply next year, what's going to happen? Can we open it up to grade nines? I'm not sure if that's even possible.
Through the chair, I can speak to the grade 9 piece, and then perhaps Executive Superintendent Victorino can share what we would do in the event that no one came forward. As per Regulation 707, the student trustees from the ministry, one of the provisions for qualification for a student trustee is that they must be a senior student. So in grade 11 and 12, we would never be able to contemplate a student trustee in grade 9 or 10, as that would not be in compliance with the reg.
I would be concerned to see this position not being filled. So I'm just wondering if there's any way that we can sort of broaden the pool of students that we contact. All right, thank you very much. And I look forward to hopefully getting an answer to if there's any type of history as to which schools haven't actually provided a student trustee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Trustee Stefano Pascucci. Do we have any other questions? Seeing no questions, I'd just like to take this opportunity to congratulate student trustee Bailey Klein, and also we have student trustee Raheem White in the gallery as well. So congratulations to the both of them. And we look forward to having them as our student trustees in the upcoming school year. Next, sorry, yes, yeah, let's a round of applause. All righty, next up we have item F3, which is our equity and Indigenous education updates for the 2023-2024 school year. Associate Director Amro.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, the report begins on page 33 of your agenda package this evening, and I now pass it over to Superintendent Brunton, who will present the report.
Thank you, and good evening, and continuing through the chair. The Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board is committed to ensuring equitable and inclusive learning environments. Activities to support this commitment includes various methods of gathering feedback and monitoring outcomes and experiences, most notably through the recent student and staff census. As trustees are aware, in the previous 4 years, and of course going through the process of this current year of going through the newly multi-year strategic plan, trustees have been committed to the work of equity and Indigenous education, with many financial commitments to all of the initiatives and supports that we have in place. Although we do not have in the report specific financial commitments to each of the initiatives and resources that we provide, however, some of the few that have been in recent are resources for all staff, including multiple action steps in the multi-year strategic plan to address equitable outcomes for all students, as well as funding for the graduation coaches for Black students in our secondary schools, and as well of all of our senior leaders, both principals, vice principals, and of course members of our senior leadership team who received funding for an AQ course on anti-Black racism, ABR. As a system, we recognize the importance of the ongoing work of ensuring equitable outcomes for all students and are committed to sustaining learning that builds staff capacity with all and intentional focus on professional development, accountability, and transparency. Our internal staff in the Employee Relations Department have extensive human rights training where there is immediate follow-up on any reported misconducts from any employee group in the board. We continually and intentionally recruit and attain racialized staff in all sectors of the board. Aspiring leaders from racialized groups are encouraged and supported in their discernment for a leadership position with a structured mentorship program for all racialized staff. As a result of these supports, we have seen an increase in the number of racialized applicants, specifically in the roles of vice principal and principal, where we continue to promote candidates who reflect our diverse communities. While this report encompasses the many initiatives and supports for staff and students, we recognize that the work must continue, and we are committed to ensuring safe and inclusive learning Catholic environments for all of our students. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Superintendent Brunton. Do we have any questions to this presentation? No questions in person. Any questions online? Seeing no questions online. Once again, thank you very much for that presentation. We move on to our next item. We have nothing in item G and nothing in item H, which is our additional business. Is it 2 questions or?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, my apologies. The presenter, Rahim, at the very beginning, talked about percentages of staff. Staff in issues and events put what the percentages are with the new initiatives that we've taken. And I would say this, you know, in general, so staff can update those numbers. I think it was 80%, but only 17%. I think those are the 2 numbers that were mentioned. So I just want to make sure what those numbers are.
Through the chair, thank you, Trustee Yanika. We can put a submission in issues and events this week.
And Mr. Chairman, I recall that Trustee Thomas a number of years ago wanted specific teachers to be in as administrators or as teachers, never mind administrators, but as teachers. But I have the same feeling today that I had back then, which is what I just mentioned about teachers. Regardless of, they could be Italian as far as I care. I don't care. If they can't speak English and they can't communicate with our students, that doesn't create a challenge for the board. It creates a challenge for the kids. And because the kids can't comprehend the math, the science, the English, the French, whatever it is, French is different, but whatever that subject is, I would hope that we are hiring people that can communicate at all levels.
Through the chair, anyone who would be considered for employment with Dufferin Peel, particularly teachers, but all employees would have to pass an interview of some sort with which there is a rubric, and communication would be part of that rubric as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Trustee Yanika. Back to the presentation. Do we have any questions? Seeing no questions, once again, we have no items for item G, no items for item H. We move on to item I, which is questions asked by trustees. On my speakers list, I have Trustee Mario Piscucci. Any other speakers that would like to be added? I have Trustee Bruno Yanika as well. If there's anyone online, feel free to message me. Trustee Mario Piscucci.
Thank you very much, Mr. There we are. The reason I would like to bring forward something regarding St. Sophia. Last week, green light on. Can you hear me?
Through the chair, if you could speak just a little bit louder, I think we would need that in order for the people online to hear you.
Is that better? There it is. I can
Through the
hear.
chair, it's much better. Yes,
Okay, thank you. I was at St. Sophia School last night and was welcomed as normally and as enthusiastically. They just love what Dufferin Peel does, and we enjoy with them as a school as well. Something came up the board meeting the other night, and relative to a playground structure that's being reworked or recreated or worked with at Galeen Park, which is right behind the school. And the interesting thing is this particular redevelopment will take I think is scheduled to be completed in July 2025, almost a year and a little. Someone mentioned something about, a working relationship with the city, which is great. It's very positive. But my question to staff is this: how much interaction will our board have with the city for this piece of property, and if that includes Peel Board as well? Because Peel Board uses it as a playground as well, just like Dufferin Peel does at their school, St. Sophia. I'm sorry, the name escapes me what the public school name is. So the question I have to ask staff, and Matthew Thomas probably the person who should answer the question, is that the interaction, what is the future plan? Because I know that we have a lot of facilities. We've worked together with the Peel Board, with the city, and we've created these incredible opportunities and places for their children to play. So would it be possible for you to have this move forward to Matthew Thomas and You react to it as.
Through the chair, I can certainly take that back and get information provided.
That's great. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Trustee Mario Pascucci. Trustee Bruno Iannica.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two questions if I could. A lot has changed in at least the 32 years that I've been here. Good, bad, or indifferent. But one of the things that one of the parents of this board of the school that I represent made an observation of some of the books that were being offered to some of our students. And I am wondering two things. Are we, or what are we doing to ensure that the books that come in are the books that we want in our schools, and books that are being sold, what are we doing to either curb that or have parents more involved in the selection?
Through the chair, in terms of the books that are on our shelves, they are typically culled and reviewed by our library staff for their appropriateness, particularly by division. In terms of third-party vendors who may come into our buildings or provide services with regards to purchasing books, we have messaged out to principals to ensure that teachers communicate with parents whether or not they would like to receive those brochures, for lack of a better term, book clubs, etc., and recognizing that the choice is on them as a parent to purchase the books they're in or not.
And if I were to ask staff, if I were to identify as school and say, can staff advise me what books are in that library, would we have the ability to do so, and what would the turnaround time approximately be?
So through the chair, I've learned a little bit about library cataloging over the past couple of days. We're able to mine some pretty specific data in terms of what's on the shelves for students and what's on the shelves as resources for teachers. Certainly, we have limited staff that are able to provide that information, but if there are specific requests, please provide them, and I will do my best to get back to you in due time.
Thank you. My second question, Mr. Chairman. Recently at the SEAC, well, I'll give you a little bit of history. Back in the late spring, the union representing ERWs and board staff, Superintendent Strong, made a presentation to the committee, and we wrote a letter to the ministry regarding the shortage. Is there a shortage in ERWs? Staff comment on that.
Through the chair, it's a provincial challenge. Certainly the recruitment and retention of educational resource worker or teacher assistant staff throughout the province. We have sent 2 letters to the Ministry of Education through our Special Education Advisory Committee and received a response identifying our concerns with respect to the retention and recruitment of ERWs, to which we received a response and sent back another letter. On a good news, we are being as aggressive as we can with respect to recruitment in Dufferin Peel. We have partnerships with 4 post-secondary institutions from which we draw student candidates, so teacher candidates or ERW candidates in this regard and in this case, and have the intention to follow up with a hiring process once those people are completed with their placement in Dufferin Peel. And certainly, we have also hired or provided a specific portfolio of one individual in the Human Resources Department with respect to focus on recruitment and retention of ERW staff. So there is a lot of work going on behind the scenes. However, I would say, high level, this is a provincial challenge.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To follow up, if I could.
Sure.
And staff put that in a brief report to SEAC. They know that the letters, I mean, we got the first letter and it really didn't answer any of the questions. That's thus the second letter. But I think that the SEAC members need to know that we're not sitting on our hands and waiting for the province to come up with a miraculous, response to another letter, which 32 years I've never seen it, but and I don't mean to be that way, but it is that way. But if our parents are aware of what we are doing, how we are doing it, then I know that they would be most appreciative that we're not sitting around waiting.
Through the chair, through the leadership of Superintendent Papaloni, we can bring a verbal report to SEAC with respect to where we're at with the RW recruitment and retention.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, staff.
Thank you very much, Trustee Bruno Iannica. Next, I have Trustee Stefano Pascucci.
Thank you very much. Through you, Mr. Chairman. I was at a parent council meeting last night, and I was asked a question. When the ministry changes anything to do with curriculum, the parents were asking, and unfortunately, I couldn't find it myself. Do we provide an update on what the curriculum, whatever updates are happening to the curriculum? So, for example, when they de-streamed science, or with the upcoming changes to FDK program, is this information provided to our parents as well?
Through the chair, typically we do send out parental communication when there is a change to the curriculum. If there's a specific situation that you'd like to discuss, I'd be happy to take that offline.
Thank you very much. No, it wasn't, it just actually came up in the conversation. So I don't know what subject or what grade it would be, but it was an elementary school. So whatever changes from there. Thank you very much for that, Associate Director Emerald. And oh yes. Regarding the money that was provided to us from the ministry, from the government, for tutoring, for our students after the pandemic, I'm correct to understand that that money has dried up, correct?
Through the chair, unfortunately, yes.
Is there any indication that they're willing to provide that?
Chair, we're at the time
again.
we're waiting with bated breath with respect to the release of the GSNs and the priority and partnership funds, or PPFs, which are released typically after the March break, but we'll wait and see if that happens. At that time, we'll be able to provide a more fulsome report to trustees with respect to the funding model that is coming forward for 24-25.
Thank you. I really hope that they're able to find some money after giving $140 million to Toronto and X amount of dollars to Brampton for building houses. So hopefully they'll be able to find something to give our students again. So thank you very much, Associate Director Amaral. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Trustee Stefano Pascucci. Next, I have Student Trustee Bailey Klein.
Through the chair, what efforts is the board currently taking on to hire racialized superintendents and executive staff?
So through the chair, recruitment remains a priority as part of our a strategic plan to dismantle anti-Black racism. I know that Superintendent Brunton and Executive Superintendent Vectorino are working with Superintendent Strong. I don't know, if Superintendent Brunton, if you'd like to comment basically on some of the strategies that we're using with respect to mentoring our specifically racialized Black leaders in the system.
So thank you for the question, and continuing through the chair. At the senior level leadership, let's just say vice principals and principals, we do have a structured mentorship program. Student Trustee Bailey, you might remember the Black Excellence support team, which is one avenue in which our current racialized administrators who are in the role of principal and vice principals serve on a mentorship program in which we purposefully and intentionally recruit teachers who are interested in pursuing the leadership of vice principal, where we provide mentorship programs and sessions for them to attend, in which we will meet with them and walk them through the discernment process of the Catholic Leadership Qualification Program. As well as to Associate Director Amaral's comments, Executive Superintendent Vectorino, myself, as well as Superintendent Strong, have regular meetings as a system, as a whole, with any employee from any employee group, from a racialized group who wishes to pursue further leadership in their department or sector. And we provide mentorship opportunity, not just for the instructional side of the board, but also for the corporate side of the board who wishes to pursue those leadership opportunities, in which we will meet, discern, and support them with the skill sets embedded in the job opportunities in which they wish to pursue. In terms of the senior level leadership, we do always recruit and attain. We always put the word out there in terms of recruiting racialized candidates for all panels. And I know that Director Mazzarato has also committed to having panels in which we have representations from racialized groups serving on those panels to make it an equitable and fair process for all.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Brunton. Along with that, I believe Director Mazzarato has a few comments that she'd like to share.
Oh, yes, thank you, Chair Sean Xavier, and I want to thank Student Trustee Bailey Klein for the question as well. I think it's a very important question to ask, Student Trustee Klein, and I want to say to you that it has been a priority of my leadership to ensure that we're doing all that we can to diversify our workforce in both areas of the organization, corporate and instructional, and most importantly in the leadership positions that are assumed at our schools and in other levels throughout the organization. And so I can tell you for the last number of years, as referenced by Superintendent Wayne Brunton, we have intensified the kind of mentorship programs that we've put out there to encourage a more diverse population of individuals to come forward. When we are looking at appointments, especially within our schools, my first question to the senior team is, do we have individuals that are diverse and represent the beautiful diversity of our students? And where that is the case, we have made a priority. I'd like to share with you that where candidates have come forward that are racialized or represent the diversity of our population, and with the supports that we give them, we have seen some significant success in their being successful through that process. Do we need more? We absolutely do. We absolutely do. And that comes through continuing to support those that are interested in leadership and other opportunities throughout the board to ensure that they're successful, and to ensure that there's priorities in terms of decisions that we are made in choosing people to occupy those positions. But it has been an ongoing commitment of my own personal leadership. I know it's a commitment of the senior leadership team and this board of trustees as well, who also, support us in hiring panels, etc. But I would also acknowledge we've got a long way to go, a long way to go in trying to diverse our population even more and make it more reflective of the students and the families in which we serve. And as referenced by Superintendent Wayne Brunton, we've also made a commitment to ensure that we have at least one diverse candidate on the interview panels at every level of the organization, to ensure that there's a voice there that is reflective of the lived experience of the various diverse individuals that make up the workforce in Dufferin Peel.
Thank you very much, Director Mazzarato. Student Trustee Bailey Klein.
Through the chair, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Mario Piscucci.
Here we are. That's better. I'd like to bring forward the idea. I asked staff to take a look at Silver Creek, and we were going to get a report back or verbal or otherwise, that basically gives us a status of Silver Creek and what's happening. Some concerns that were brought forward a while back. So David, if I can ask somebody in staff to get a hold of me, please, if it's possible.
Through the chair, I'll reach out and have a conversation.
And if it's appropriate or there's information that's good for everybody, I would like it put so that everybody gets to receive it.
Through the chair, yes, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Mario Piscucci. Trustee Bruno Iannica.
Just a quick question on a question that I asked at the board table, Mr. Chairman. What is staff's proposal for rolling out the see me for me to our schools. The last meeting,
Through the chair, we had purchased one book for each elementary school and two for secondary, or the other way around. Two for elementary and one for secondary. It will be coming part as the minutes from Business Arising at the next board meeting. It'll be part of that chart.
okay. And so, will our elementary schools, will our schools, I use that in a plural way, be reading that book to our students?
Memo will attach the books and to be attached to the books through the chair in terms of providing direction to teachers on how they can use that book with their students.
Perfect. And thank you very much. Greatly, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Trustee Bruno Iannica. Do we have any other questions? Seeing no questions, we have no declared interest items this evening. We have no in-camera session, and we have no report from in-camera. So our future meeting is on May 14th, 2024. Could I get a move for adjourn? Moved by Trustee Mario Pascucci. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none carried. Have a great night.